Hi, it's Ian here from Six String Gym. I've got a great tutorial for you today on it's an introduction to scales. Um, the purpose of this will be to discuss what scales are and why they're important. So first off, what is a scale? Well, it's a tonal structure which produces a unique sound. Um, and basically that means there's a set of notes, a unique set of or a unique arrangement of notes that gives a unique sound. And so I've got some diagrams here which hopefully represent that quite well, visually represent it for you. They're sort of three-dimensional diagrams, and the idea will be to help you sort of get this idea of structure into your mind. So that's the main point of this tutorial today. I'm going to be introducing a number of different scales. It doesn't matter too much if you remember them all. You can always refer back to this this video or the associated blog post. So if you have a look in the description there, you'll see there's a link to the blog post associated with this video, and you can find all the diagrams and there's some blurb with it which help you understand what they're about. Okay, so let's get on with it. The first scale we're going to look at is the chromatic scale, and this is probably the most important scale in Western music because it contains all of the notes that we need to produce any scale in Western music. It's rarely used directly itself. Occasionally it does appear in jazz and in classical music. So if you have a look at the diagram, you can see all the notes that are available to us there. It starts with the A at the bottom and goes to A sharp, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D flat, D, D sharp, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp, A flat, and back to A. So the notes between, say, A and B are referred to as A sharp, B flat. So that's the same note. A sharp is the same as B flat. D sharp is the same as E flat, and C sharp is the same as D flat, and so on. If you have a look at that diagram, you can see that it's a nice little staircase there. They're all even steps, and these steps are what are called semitones or half steps, and we can hear it. I'll play the notes for you. A sharp, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D flat, E, D, D sharp, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp, A flat, and back to A again. So these steps are what are called intervals, and it just means the musical distance between one note and another. Now, the important thing here to remember is that these semitone steps or half steps are the same as, well, if you look on your guitar, the distance between a note on one fret and the note on the fret next to it, either above or below, that's a semitone or a half step. This scale, the chromatic scale, has there's no unique shape to it, so it's uniform in structure. So, and as a consequence of that, it has no tonal centre, no place to go home to musically. So it has no root note as such or home note. So if you look at the scale there, the scale just actually goes up past the end of the scale and in the opposite direction too, below the lowest note on that scale. One last point to introduce to you is the notion of octaves. If you look on that scale there, at the bottom of the staircase we have an A, and then at the top I've got another A, and so they're both the same note, but they're separated by an octave, and so that's something that's a consequence of going up the frequency range. These notes are the same, but just separated by an octave. The major scale is probably the most widely used scale in modern Western music. It's used in most genres to some degree, and it has a bright and happy sound to it. So if we step through it, you have a look at the diagram there. It starts, well, in this case we're doing an A major, so it starts on an A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And so all the unique notes there are, this is just 7 unique notes there before the repetition of the A. As opposed to the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. So these 7 notes, you can find all of these 7 notes in the chromatic scale, but it doesn't use all of the chromatic scale, so that's why it's a subset of the chromatic scale. You'll also notice that some of the steps in that staircase are bigger than others. Well, those are whole tone steps, equivalent to 2 semitones. So we have 2 different types of steps there. We have whole tone or tone steps, and semitone steps, which are the same as in the chromatic scale. If we look again at the scale diagram, and we'll start from the root note, which is A in this case. The steps go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, and that gives it an odd look, which is the uniqueness of it, that unique structure, and that's what gives it its unique sound. I could construct a major scale starting from any note, so if I started on a B, for instance, and then use that same series of intervals, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, I would get a B major scale. So the major scale is an idea, it's an abstract structure which we can apply to the real world and create major scales from it. Probably quite an important thing to remember is that the major scale is kind of a reference scale as well for other scales. So quite a few scales are described in terms of the major scale. So for instance, the melodic minor scale is a major scale with a flattened third. Another thing about scales that we tend to do is to refer to the steps of the scale as degrees of the scale, and we give them numbers. So on our scale there, the A note, the first note in the scale, would be the first degree, and then it goes second degree, third degree, fourth degree, fifth degree, sixth degree, seventh degree, and then the 8th degree will be actually the first degree again. The next scale I'm going to talk about is the natural minor. It's related to the major scale, and we'll get to why that is in a minute. And because it's related to the major scale, it's often referred to as the relative minor. The natural minor is different to the major scale in that it has a somber character to it. So it's a sadder sounding scale. We can step through the degrees of the scale. We're going to do it. It's A natural minor in this case, and it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Now looking at the notes on that scale there, if we were to count from C up that scale and back to C again, that would actually be a C major scale, because it will go, you can actually do this yourself by looking at the diagram and counting tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, and that's the structure of a major scale. Well, by starting on the A, that gives us a natural minor. So although the A natural minor is constructed from starting on the 6th degree of the C major scale, people tend to think of it the other way around. So the A natural minor is a third or 3 degrees down from the C major scale, which is why it's an A natural minor. The natural minor is also referred to by its mode name, which is Aeolian mode. We'll get to modes later. I don't want to confuse you too much. All you need to know for now is that it's just another name that it goes by. Another thing that you might have noticed from the scale is that all of the notes of the scale don't have any sharps or flats in them, and that's probably gave us the names of the notes that we use today. The harmonic minor is a widely used scale. It was used extensively in Baroque and classical music in the 17th, 18th century. Still used today in neoclassical and some jazz music contexts. Yngwie Malmsteen uses it almost exclusively, and you can hear that in most of his guitar solos and his compositions. If we have a look at the diagram, and I'll step through the notes of the harmonic minor, and it goes. So this scale is basically a natural minor with a sharpened seventh, and that sharpened seventh is what gives it its unmistakable tonality. We hopefully pick that up there. So if you have a look at the 6th and 7th degrees on there, you can see that there's a big step, which is a large interval of 3 semitones, and that interval is referred to as a minor third. And if you have a look at the natural minor scale, or even this harmonic minor scale, just count the semitones up from the first degree of the scale to the 3rd degree of the scale. That's a minor third. So this step between the 6th and 7th degrees is also a minor third. Onto the melodic minor. The melodic minor scale is also sometimes called the jazz minor, obviously because it's used in jazz. Outside of jazz, if you ever listen to Steve Vai's Blue Powder, that's constructed based on the melodic minor scale to very good effect. And it's also used in later classical music. I'll quickly run through the notes of that scale now for you. So this scale is a natural minor with a sharpened 6th and 7th degrees. In classical music, it's actually different between ascending and descending. In ascending, you have the sharpened 6th and 7th degrees, but in descending, they're natural, so they look like the natural minor again. But that practice is largely abandoned today. Another way to think of the melodic minor is as a major scale with a flattened third. Onto the harmonic major. This is a rarely used scale, but I've included it because I like the scale, and it's just here to give you a sense of the possibilities as far as scales go. Alan Holsworth uses it, and the name comes from the harmonic minor, but with a major third. So if you compare this scale to the harmonic minor, you can see that the third has been raised, and that's why it's called harmonic major instead of harmonic minor. So I'll just step through the notes for you. So there you go, harmonic minor scale, but with a major third is what makes a major harmonic major. And I tend to think of this scale as a major scale with a flattened 6. There are plenty of other scales around. These have all been 7-note scales that I've talked about today. They're not the only 7-note scales, you'll find others. There are also scales that have less than 7 notes and scales that have more than 7 notes. But don't get overwhelmed by all these different scales. I'm just giving you an idea about scale structure, and just giving you the idea that there are different scales out there, and you may take an interest in particular scales and decide to develop your playing around different scales. You can do an awful lot with one scale, and most people go throughout their musical careers just playing with 1 or 2 different scales. So in summary on scales, all of our scales in Western music are constructed using the notes of the chromatic scale. Scales themselves are a series of intervals, where an interval is the musical distance between one note and another. The smallest interval is the semitone, and on your guitar, a 1-fret step is equal to a semitone. So a scale is a tonal structure which produces a unique sound, which hopefully you will have heard today and started to recognise. Scales are used to construct chords, and they're used for improvisation, as you're going to find out, or unless you already realise that from listening to guitar solos and whatnot. Okay, well that's it for today. Hope to catch you on the next video.